And yeah, essentially the purpose of this webinar is to get the audience to understand a little bit more about you so that
Okay.
on the day of the annual forum when we have the unscripted event, they aren't, sitting there unsure of what you do, who you are, and what type of questions to ask you, right?
Okay.
This is kind of just like an introduction to who you are, and I'll ask them questions. Hopefully, they learn something and they come up with better questions or personalized questions that you might be able to answer on the day of the forum.
What kind of audience have you guys been getting on these calls? I know you did one with Zen up the other day, and then I saw a couple more.
We have a couple of people. Uh, so what do you mean by what type of audience?
Like right now, you have an audience, right? People who are
Correct.
actually going to attend.
People who are attending right now, yes.
Okay. So how many do you generally get? I guess was I was asking. Just
Anywhere
curious.
from 10 and above.
Okay, got it. Okay, that's a
Yep.
good thing. We never thought about this. We have our annual meeting coming up right before you guys, and I didn't think about it. This is actually a good way to gauge people and have them do questions. Like we have Naveed Sherwani, who obviously lives by you guys. He's one of our speakers. So
Right.
maybe I'll consider that. Maybe have a session and do that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
absolutely. I
great that you
mean,
guys are
if we
doing
can
this.
help, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so let me get started with the first question.
Okay.
So obviously, in preparation for this event, I did a deep dive into your LinkedIn and other profiles, and these questions are just based off of that. So, obviously, you've built a long and successful career in financial services. What personal values or habits do you think contributed to your professional growth, and leadership success the most?
Absolutely. So one is mentorship. I learned from a lot of people. Some of the people you guys are familiar with, the Zen Jivanjis of the world and the Tariq Khans of the world. These were all people that grew up in the insurance industry and, throughout. Other was just leadership. I think my leadership role at Open, and I wear a dual hat, as you may know. I'm the chairman of Open Chicago, but I'm also the COO of Open Global. So a lot of that came from the leadership journey that I learned through my experience in the insurance industry, and then I applied it to nonprofit organizations such as Open. And then just learned to work hard and be successful. Coming from Pakistan, which is where I came, and this is actually 40th year. I've been in this country 40
Wow.
years now, 4 decades,
Wow.
and one and only career. And I realized that a lot of these things are important because that's what makes you successful if you just follow through and continue to do hard work, continue to lead, continue to mentor, continue to learn from mentors, and then just find the right group of people around you.
Right. And that kind of introduced my next question. You've been as a longtime leader of Open Chicago and now COO of Open Global. What role do you think community-based organizations like Open play in helping immigrants and or first generation professionals succeed in, various businesses?
Sure, significant role. One is certainly a networking opportunity. Secondly, meeting like-minded people. Thirdly, we've seen a lot of cross-pollination of businesses, people who have never thought about running a business, and they come into an open environment and they realize that they have help and support available, all from mentorship to investments to angel investors and people that they can rely on, people that they can firsthand ask questions and learn. So that has changed a lot of people's journey from being employed somewhere into owning a business. And Open has been an integral part of that. And then just, being able to navigate because when you come from overseas, you come to a very complicated system, right? Many of us grew up in Pakistan. We were used to the system there. Families are there, people who we knew. Here we came as immigrants. We had to start from scratch. And I
Right.
think the same concept also translates to the new generation of people. So, like my kids learned a lot of those values because I came from where values were important. And I was able to transcend those same values into my children. So, it made it easier for them to understand the roles that they play and how important it was for their parents and how what they had to do to be successful. So it translates across generation, and I think that's the best part of this journey that people relate and learn from one another.
Right. And you mentioned your kids and the next generation. What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs and professionals trying to build relationships with mentors or investors within the open network?
So I think follow through is very important. I see a lot of people commit, but they don't follow through. I think persistency is another one. In Silicon Valley, where you are, there's a lot of very successful people, right? And a lot of young people or a lot of new entrepreneurs want to follow the ones that are successful, but sometimes they get disheartened because, those people get busy.
Right.
And I tell people that don't give up, just, follow through. An example would be of somebody like Zain, right? A busy person that travels all over the world. And I've recommended some people to him. Zain is a good friend of mine. And sometimes I hear back from people after a call or two and they say, oh, he didn't return my call or I didn't get in contact with him. So I'm not going to contact him anymore. And I'm like, these are busy people. You can't just give
Right.
up, right? You have to, if you
You have to
need to
keep
find
going, correct?
someone, you have to follow through. So I tell people that just continue on because that's what this is all about. Just find the person. And even I do the same, even though I've lived in this country for 40 years and I run a very successful business and a part of a big organization like Open. I still find people that I can learn from. There are a lot of people in all different parts of the country, especially in organizations like Open, where I'm still looking forward to making myself better. So the journey never ends, it continues on.
Right. And how do you encourage innovation and adaptability among more traditional professionals who might be hesitant about new tools and methods, especially in this day and age?
I think it's very important. Everybody talks about being a fan of AI and not being a fan of AI. The old timers think AI is going to replace human beings and it's not needed. In my industry, the insurance industry, they tried years ago when they tried selling insurance online. It failed really fast because they realized that AI could not answer all the questions. It didn't have emotions.
Right.
When you're making a purchase of something that's a life-changing experience, you need emotions in the sale, and AI couldn't do that. But I tell people that you have to be adaptable. If you're not adaptable, if you still believe in paper, if you're not familiar with electronics, or you're not good at computers, or you don't believe in technology, you're going to be left behind because the world will move on. So either you have a seat at the table or you don't.
Right. And I guess that kind of answers my next question, but if you want to elaborate more, the question was the insurance and financial advisory
Mhm.
world is changing fast with technology. How do you see AI and automation affecting client relationships and advisors' roles in the next 5 years?
Absolutely. So, where AI has really helped us is in the underwriting process. Policies are issued faster. You can get service much faster because you can do a lot of things automated online. Before you had to call an agent for everything. Now you don't have to. You have the access to, sign up online, get something done. But during the sales process as well, you've got automation, but the development of the sales process still requires a human being because you can't go to a computer and say, hey, I want to buy a life insurance policy. Can you tell me which one? Of course, you can Google it, but Google does not give you the emotions of it. It's just going to tell you a price and it's going to tell you a company and a number, right?
Right.
Now, some people will accept that and say, fine, that's all I needed, right? I wanted to buy, like when people buy a car, right? You can go online and figure out the best price for the new BMW you're trying to buy. And if you're happy with that, that's fine. Some people still like to go to the dealership and negotiate and see if they can get a better deal. So I
Right.
think it's a combination of both. But certainly in my business, in the insurance side, technology and automation has helped us a lot. Before we used to type applications in, right? Now we
Right.
can
Right.
scan stuff in and it can self-read. Before we used to do paper applications, people could not read handwritings and you had to do it again. Now it's all electronic, it's all typed in. You can speak to it now, right? You have fillable PDFs that you can talk to it and it fills it itself and you can transmit it pretty fast. So a lot of time-saving mechanism and that directly affects consumers because if the process is faster at the side of us, then it's obviously going to make it faster for the client to get it.
Definitely, yeah. And many professionals struggle with balancing scale sales goals and client trust. So how do you teach your team to maintain integrity but still maintain that level of competitiveness?
Yeah, that's a very important dynamic that I deal with every day. I have 50 plus agents who work for me in my
Uh,
agency, and some of them are still in that era of quotas, right? Because every sales organization has a quota. You have to do X amount of dollars to, qualify for this trip and this award and what have you. And I tell people that that's fine, but your client doesn't care. The client cares about what's important for them. So you have to have that fine balance between doing what's right first for a client. So we talk about this, that it's a three-legged stool. You've got you, the insurance agent, you've got the customer or the client, and then you've got the insurance company, right? And somehow you got to match all three. That it makes sense for the company to give that product to the client. It makes sense for the client to buy that policy from you and the insurance company. And then it makes sense that you're getting paid the right way on what you're selling. So as long as there's an equal balance between all three, is generally not a problem. Now, occasionally you do find people that, will say, well, I'll just sell something that makes me the most commissions or,
right.
I don't care. But very few now because analysis are identified by not just technology, but there's also compliance people, right? That look at your sale and see that it really was the right product that you sold. So I think it's a good combination.
Okay. And I guess you kind of answered my next question, which was what strategies have you found the most effective for building a strong and motivated team in high pressure sales environments?
So I tell people that gaining the client's trust is the most important piece. The other thing that I do is I tell all my agents that sometimes it's analysis paralysis, right? You give the common person so many pieces of paper that they get confused. If I came to you right now and I was trying to sell you insurance and I gave you a 100-page illustration, you're going to get bored pretty quick. And you're going to
Absolutely.
say, I don't have time to read. Can you just give me the cliff points of it? Or can we just have a conversation? So I train my people that even though sales environment is tough and pressured, as you said, but there's a way to sell. If you just look at your client, like I'm very, I'm very, I shouldn't say good, but I always believe that you have a conversation with a potential customer, you look at them in the eyes, you read their body language, you give them an opportunity to say things to you so you don't do all the talking. Salespeople are notorious at talking too much, right?
Right, right,
And you find a happy median between then understanding what the client's needs are and giving them the right product that pays and build that trust. If you do that correctly, the sales quotas and the pressure never come.
right. So you're saying to keep the quotas out of your mind and just focus on building trust with the clients.
Absolutely. When I'm talking to a client, I'm not thinking about the commissions. I'm not thinking about the premium. I'm not thinking about if I make this sale, what's it going to do for me? What I'm thinking about is, am I doing the right job by finding the right product and service that this client, is asking for and deserves from me? And if I do that correctly, that same client is going and tell the story to many other people, and automatically I'll have more clients to see. But if I
Right,
gave them something that really didn't fit there because it made sense for me, then I'll never have that client back. So the
right.
trust factor in a sale is very important. And I equate that to anything, right? So you and I are both consumers, right? Think about when you go to buy to make a major purchase. There are salespeople you feel comfortable with, and the salespeople you don't feel comfortable with, right?
Right, right.
Sometimes you say, "Oh my God, that's such a typical salesperson. I don't want to buy from him or her." And sometimes you feel like maybe the product is not good, but they were so good at explaining, I think I want to give this person the business. So it's the same thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And what advice would you have to a startup trying to, do outreach and get sales through, cold calling, cold emailing?
Yeah, so I think that's a challenge. I think most people who come into this industry as a startup or brand new come with some sort of not necessarily a book of business, but come with some sort of number of people that they know,
Hmm.
because you need a starting point, right? Now, that doesn't mean you need hundreds and hundreds of clients to begin with. But I think what I've seen that's really worked for me in my recruiting efforts of agents is I've gone out and found people who are good at speaking, are good at explaining. They are members of organizations like Open and others. They may not know a lot of people, but they are willing to learn through those organizations to get to know people, right? So networking is the key component in my mind that if you're a good networker, if you walked into a room and there were 50 people there, my question would be how many of those 50 people are you going to know by the end of the night?
Right.
Or are you going to know none? If your answer is I'm just here to enjoy, have the biryani and that's it, then you probably are not a salesperson, right? But
Yeah.
if you are someone who is in sales or wants to be successful, you're going to go corner to corner and shake hands and introduce yourself and give them a card and, you know, and be there. And that's the difference.
Right. Right. And how do you approach networking and, client relationships now differently than what you did when you first started?
So when I first started, I was not sure about myself. So I used to think, I still remember the first sale I ever made to an older person. In that time, 65, I consider to be an older. I was very hesitant. I was 29 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, as an American, I'm a Pakistani, I'm an immigrant, I'm a brown skin, and I'm going out and asking this gentleman who's old, white, experienced, runs a big company, and I'm going to ask him to invest $500,000 of investment with me on an insurance product. What's he going to be thinking? He's going to say, what does this guy know? He's 29 years old. He's only been in the country a couple of years, right?
Right.
That was in my mind. That was my thought until I asked, and it wasn't difficult. And I still remember that day very, you know how some things in your life, even they're 30 years old, you remember that moment?
Yeah,
I've never
absolutely.
forgotten that moment because I use that moment at times when I'm afraid now, occasionally, and I say, what's the worst that could have happened? He would have said no. He
Hmm.
wouldn't have kicked me out of the house. He wouldn't have called the police. He wouldn't have scolded me, right? He would have just said no. So when
Yeah.
you talk about rejection, and that's a key component in a sales environment, I don't ever take rejection personally. They're not saying no to me. They're just saying no to what I'm selling.
Right. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. That's a pretty impressive story, and that's something I'll try to remember when I'm doing my own work. But going back to, your role in leadership and yeah, in your experience, what are the biggest misconceptions people have about leadership and entrepreneurship?
So I think people think in leadership situations that I have to be really good at being a leader. It's not true. You learn over a period of time to become a leader. You're not a born leader. I wasn't a born leader. I just, came into that environment of sales and that taught me leadership. And then I decided to go into management and then I decided to go into nonprofits and lead that. So you have to have faith and trust that it's a journey. It's not going to happen. It's not going to look pretty day one, but you can make it look pretty eventually. And everybody's time frame is different. For entrepreneurs, I think it's also the faith factor. A lot of people decide not to be entrepreneurs because they don't believe that they have the leadership skills and the management skills to run a business. Because running a business is challenging, right? Not everybody can do it. You know how you find some people that are very good business owners and some people you're like, oh my God, what a horrible business owner, right?
Right.
Maybe they never thought, maybe they just thought that running a business is pretty easy and everybody wants to do it. So even in my industry, it's a very common thing that people who do well in sales, most companies will say, oh my God, he's doing so well in sales, let's promote him to a manager, right?
Right.
Absolutely wrong mistake. Because not every good salesperson can be a good manager. And I've
Hmm.
seen so many people that became managers with me when I was promoted 2 years in that miserably failed. And they eventually ended up going back to selling because that's not what they were looking for. It was just that their managers at that time convinced that you've done so well, let's promote you to be a manager. But
Right.
everybody doesn't have the leadership skills.
Right, right. So, what do you look for when hiring, a sales associate to a manager?
So I look for people that have good habits, that are good listeners, that are good, have a good oration skill, that are hardworking. They always, come to the meetings and come to the office 5 minutes before the meeting time. They're not tardy and come late. They dress well. They're not afraid of picking up the phone and calling people. They're not afraid of asking their relatives and friends and family, at least to share with them what they do. It doesn't mean that they have to sell everybody they know. Half the battle I find is that people are just not willing to tell someone what they do. And I'm like, well, why the hell did you become a salesperson then if you didn't want to tell? The easiest sale is to people who you know, right? And
Yeah,
I get it that especially in the South Asian community, sometimes they can be your hardest clients, right? But until you try, how are you going to know? So
right,
those are kind of the things I look for, and then I look for whether they're trustworthy, whether they're good at developing a relationship with people. Because any type of sales organization, the only people that truly stay here, I've stayed in this business for 35 years now, and the reason I'm still here doing what I'm doing and I'm not bored is because I truly enjoy what I do. So for me, sales is, you know, easy. And when I tell people, they're like, what are you talking about? It's so difficult to sell anything to anybody. Nevertheless, a life insurance policy, right? And I tell them, what are
right,
you talking about? It's the easiest thing for me to sell. So it's perspective.
right. I guess one of my last questions is going to
Sure.
be, how do you prioritize giving back to your community while managing the demands of a growing business? And I mean, you've been doing it for a while now, so I just wanted to get your insight on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I realized way early in my career that one of the reasons I'm successful in what I'm doing is because I had a good base growing up in Pakistan. I spent first 20 years of my life in Pakistan. I spent the last 40 here. I'm 60 years old. So I realized that if my first 20 years, my country did not give me the things I learned, I wouldn't have been here. So that's my motivation every day to give back. That's why I give back to the open community. I'm a part of many other organizations, nonprofits. I've done a lot of government work, as you may have seen on my LinkedIn. I've been a
Yeah,
part of many governmental organizations. But my true love is truly helping new people that come from Pakistan, young people like yourself who are graduating, who are looking to make a start. Because, as I said when we first started talking, that mentorship was very important to me. I would not be here today if the person who hired me and gave me my first job didn't believe and trust in me because he was also a Pakistani person that gave me my first job and said, "Hey, even though you don't know anybody, but you can be a good salesperson." He was the one who got me through my green card, and eventually I got my citizenship. So when I think about all of that, I want to give back the same way. That I want to give back the same way that if tomorrow somebody graduates and is looking for an opportunity, and if I can be the one that gives them that opportunity and that leads to them having residency here and building a family and having kids and what have you, then I'll get up every day and say, I felt good. It's kind of the same thing we do with Open, right? We see a lot of entrepreneurs that come from Pakistan that have no understanding of how this country runs, right? They spend their entire life there. They're now immigrating here. We, the onus is on us, the Silicon Valleys, the Chicago, the New Yorks, and whatever, that we help those people become secure. We learn, we translate what we learned to them and hope that they become successful so that someday you and I and others stand up one day and say, I remember that person so distinctly. Was at the
right.
Open Silicon Valley meeting on November 8th, 2025. And now 5 years later, he's running a company worth 50 million. And it may not just be me, but I played a little role at
Right.
giving that person advice and mentorship, and look where he is now.
That's a very wholesome and impressive mindset to have, and there's
Yeah, I
so
mean,
much.
what can be what can be more rewarding to you in your life than being able to stand up someday and say you truly helped someone reach where they're trying to reach, right? Because I'm an example of someone, if somebody didn't help me, I'd be not here. I'd be somewhere in Karachi doing
Right.
whatever, right? But here I am, having a conversation with you and enjoying myself because somebody trusted me.
Right.
So I
Absolutely.
need to translate that back to those people.
That's a very impressive mindset. That has me, that gives me food for thought. And I appreciate your time and your willingness to come on and, share your insight and experience with all of our members and coming over here on November 8th, and, being part of the Unscripted Forum. We really appreciate your time and your advice and your insight.
No, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I would encourage as many people. I've been promoting you guys in Chicago. I told all my charter members, I think there's about 10 or 11 of us from Chicago that are coming
Okay.
to Silicon Valley because, you guys are like the best of the best out there. And I told everybody, I said, you want to listen to a first class lineup of people being able to shake hands with truly people that are trailblazers from our community in various fields, then that's the place to go. So I'm hoping that, you'll have your 1,000+ people there on the
Absolutely.
8th. And, those of you that are listening to this, if you haven't planned, please go online and buy your tickets today because it will sell out.
Absolutely. All right. We appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Yep.
I'm gonna end the recording right here.